Our scripture this morning comes from Luke's Gospel, chapter 19, verses 1 through 10. For some, this may be a story you heard through a children's video or on felt boards years ago. It's a story that some of us think we know. I invite you to listen to it as Scripture tells it. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him, because he was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. All who saw it began to grumble and said, "He has gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner." Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay it back 4 times as much." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and to save the lost." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. It took 20 years. My friend and I had spoken right past each other. We both heard the other say something completely different. We both thought the other was acting strangely after the conversation, but neither one of us addressed it head on. We just wondered where our strong friendship had gone. It took 20 years of growing up, raising kids, working on ourselves. It took 20 years of being in the same friendship circles, classes, groups. It took 20 years for me to say, "I need you to know my truth." For me to say, "I'm sorry." It took 20 years for me to admit my brokenness and say, "I'm sorry." 20 years for a wound forged in extreme adolescent stupidity to finally no longer be a burden, for it to be named, for it to be healed, and to set 2 people free from having to carry it. There is nothing more powerful than speaking our truth, even when it's hard. Admitting our truth to someone else is terrifying, but freeing. Sometimes it's not really a confession as much as speaking our truth is informing someone else, telling a family member that you are not taking over the family business, telling a partner that the relationship is just not working, telling the kids what you've been up to every December 24th for the last 8 years. Did I keep that vague enough? Sometimes it's not a confession as much as self-identifying, coming out, sharing the calling or vocation that God has placed in your life, announcing who you love. Sometimes it's not a confession. Then again, a lot of the times it is. Zacchaeus begins his interaction with Jesus by making a declaration. "I will give half of my possessions to the poor. I will pay back all I have wronged 4 times over." Excuse me. Zacchaeus has clearly been thinking about this for a while. It's fascinating, though, that he says all of this before Jesus has a conversation with him. Jesus says, "Come down." And Zacchaeus' response is, I'm giving away half of what I've got. I'm paying back 4 times what I owe. Jesus didn't tell a parable that inspired Zacchaeus. He didn't listen to Jesus' teachings along the way and follow him from town to town. He came seeking Jesus to see what this guy was, to see who he was. Because Zacchaeus was new to Jesus. Jesus really didn't say a thing, but the people around did. Zacchaeus is a tax collector, and they made sure we knew it. He's known for collecting more than necessary. He's seen as a hitman for the Roman government. He's seen as a traitor to his people. Jesus takes Zacchaeus' confession and assures him that he is loved and worth spending time with. Jesus takes Zacchaeus at his word and affirms him in front of the crowd as a child of God. Jesus takes a moment to remind people that he's there to change people, not just affirm them for what they've done. Now, we don't know what happened to Zacchaeus before this story. Had he heard Jesus teach somewhere else? Had a family member been on the plain or the mountain and heard a sermon? Had someone he knew been telling stories about Jesus? Maybe it had nothing to do with Jesus. Maybe Zacchaeus had fallen off his roof or been ill and had a near-death experience. Maybe he had lost someone close to him. Maybe he had seen the impact of his deceit on his neighbors. Maybe he went to a meeting for Tax Collectors Anonymous and he heard people tell their stories of change. We don't know how he got to this moment, but we're left to wonder what steps he took. We're left to wonder how he became accountable to his reality, how he changed direction on his journey. We're left to wonder how people will receive Zacchaeus now that he has taken this step going forward. Will he always be the redeemed, the new man from town? Will he be Scrooge, who knew how to keep Christmas better than anyone? Or will he always be mistrusted? In the eyes of the town, even if he pays people back, will he still be that tax collector, that rich guy over there? Will he get the second chance with people that he clearly has with God? The truth is, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. That's the power of confession. If you share your truth, if you proclaim what's in you, if your truth is shared with others, if you confess to those you have hurt, you've done your work. If you tell someone you love them, you have testified to love regardless of the response, and you have grown. If you come out and tell someone you're gay, you have spoken your truth regardless of their response, you are stronger. If you tell someone, I'm sorry, if you've owned the hurt that you have caused, if you've owned the role that you have played in their wounds, you can begin healing. If they reject your apology, that's okay. If they question your apology, that's a path to conversation, and that's a way towards reconciliation. Even better. Now let's be clear, those who've done addictive recovery work know this truth well. Not every attempt at making amends leads to reconciliation. Some apologies are rejected. They're blown off. Some truths are never believed. That's just reality. Reconciliation requires 2 people or more to be doing work. Healing a family requires generations to work together. Healing a relationship requires partners, both invested in the effort. Healing a community. Healing a community requires strangers and enemies taking risks in equal measure. Like Zacchaeus, we are all on our own journey. We all long to catch a glimpse of God. We all long to see what acceptance for us might look like. We all long to be welcomed and claimed. So we must put in the work. We must take the risks. We must speak our truth to those who matter most. Okay, prayer is clearly a place to start, someone will argue, but God already knows us. God knows those inner hurts, those inner truths, those things we've done wrong. God forgives us already. For healing, we must speak our truth to those we have hurt, to those who have hurt us, and to those who might be hurting with us. We must speak our truth to those we have hurt, those who have hurt us, and those who may be hurting with us. We can say to them, if we don't know what else to say, today salvation has come to this house. Today salvation has come to this house. This is the power of making amends, not building a relationship, but clearing hurts to make room for God. It's not always completely mending it, but making room for God in the hurt. Not burying the past, but clearing a path where the future is visible. Clearing a path into what can be. Church, I don't know about you, but I'm wondering if the universe has given us a massive opportunity. Time together with loved ones. Time by ourselves to reflect and prepare. Time and opportunity to find, name, and proclaim our truth, even if it's a confession. We live in a world that moves at a pace we can't keep up with. There's so many distractions available to us. It feels like the universe has hit a massive pause button and invited us to scatter out into our spaces, to take time for reflection, to see what's right in front of us that we might have been avoiding and deal with it. Sometimes maybe it is the hurt in our home, maybe it's just the ponderings of our own heart. But whatever it is, we can no longer say we have too much else going on. What's most important is right in front of us. And the universe has hit the pause button, daring us to deal with our stuff, daring us to deal with our hurts closest to home. It's like the universe is preparing us to work through our past and prepare us for the future. Social distancing is not an excuse for emotional distancing. Invisible viruses are not an excuse for harboring hidden hurts and hostilities. We are being reminded by our frailty the importance of the core things, of those we love, of God's presence with us, and the importance of hope for all people, the importance of the humanity of every person. Whatever other things were getting in the way, the pause button has been hit, and we are forced to deal with the reality in front of us. Some will keep clamoring, some will keep trying to distract, they'll use blame, they'll use denial, but eventually they will also discover there's nothing left to do but see what's right in front of us. This is a scary time. It already was. We were already changing at a pace so fast that generations couldn't keep up with the next and their change. We were already changing so fast that we were clinging to past ideals as if they were constants, knowing they weren't. We were already so struggling with change that we had divided into political and ideological extremes, distancing ourselves from each other because we didn't know how to deal with change. And now comes this scary time. This is a constantly changing world. But in reality, all times have been. Change is the only normal in all of creation. When was the time when things stayed the same? It never was. It never will be. Change is the only normal. Some of it we deal with as it comes. Some of it we try to avoid. But some of it we choose. some of the change we choose. And when we meet the change on our terms, we have some control over it. We have some sense of strength and solidarity in the midst of the change. When we face what's going on in front of us, when we deal with our truths where they are, we meet change on our terms. And some of it we take control of. We participate in our own change. We participate in the shaping of our future in the days to come. We speak our truth, and we ride where the ripples will take us. Like Zacchaeus, we will speak our truth, and we will ride the ripples of change where they take us. We stand over a large body of water, our pebble to drop, and see the ripple effect we might have. We name the impact our past pebbles have made in the world, and so when we throw the next one, we do it with intentionality, clear about where we have come from, honest about the hurts we have caused, the potential we hold, and so we toss our pebble. We choose our change, and we see where God will take us. Amen.